Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And guys, we've got the perfect guest to take us through what we've seen so far through these 4 preseason games and preview the regular season. If you guys are around on Detroit Bad Boys, you know him as Bobby Buckets. But we've got Robbie Bettelon, right? I said that right?
Bettelon.
Hopefully. Bettelon. All right. Well, we got Robbie Bettelon. See, these are the things we should clear before we start, but we got distracted by other stuff. That's bad hosting on my part. Regardless, we got the man, Bobby Buckets 313 here joining us to break down what we have seen. Robbie, how you doing, man?
I am doing great, man. It's good to see you guys again. Good to be on. I thought last time that we got on here, we discussed our lawns, and I think I was telling you that I was like, I was in bad shape, but hey, we've aerated, we've seeded recently, so we're fighting back and it's looking good. So there's my lawn update of the day.
Man, I just did a huge project in the front of ours. I took down like 2 bushes with the help of my dad and removed a bunch of pavers, and now we got new grass growing. Like, it was a good 3 days of effort, but I think we're on the progress path as well.
Yeah, it's good to see the hard work pay off for sure.
I just picked up a ton of leaves today, and I have like however many bags in front of me. So I always dread. It's beautiful. Like, I love fall, but I dread the picking up of the leaves.
For all the dumb like weather conversation around us in Chicago, it's like it's not quite fall yet. Like, the trees are either green or they're dead. There's nothing left. All the leaves have dropped. So it's really weird middle ground going on over here. There's not many leaves in my yard yet. But when I was on a bike ride the other day, it was just, you could almost not even tell that it's not summer anymore. It was really weird. Really weird.
I'm down here in Tennessee, and we're still waiting for fall. I
There
think
you go.
we're turning the corner. We're almost there, but no leaves over here yet either.
Yeah, no leaves for you. Yeah, over here it's kind of like half and half, sort of like in Chicago, I'm sure. Like, the leaves are halfway gone and some of them are still all the way there, but just the things you got to stay on top of when you have a house and responsibilities and stuff. Which
it's tough. It's tough out there, man. It's tough.
Yeah, all the hard problems of home ownership. Man, we got it so rough, guys. But we unfortunately have to talk about some bad news before we get to the really cool project that Robbie's been doing over at DBB. And we're hoping we'll continue into the season a little bit as well. That's my plug. I don't know if he's actually going to continue it on, but I hope that he does. We got to talk about Jaden Ivey. So Jaden Ivey just recently got a little bit of a cleanup procedure on his knee. It's not the same leg as the one that was injured, but if you're familiar with lower body injuries like the one that he had, it kind of makes sense. You're putting more pressure on the other leg for a long period of time. And unfortunately, that can lead to some subsequent issues as well. So it's one of those, it's not related, but it's related, right? It's not a complication, but it certainly comes about from it. So he's going to be out at least a month. I think it was reevaluated in 4 weeks. So I guess, beyond just being disappointed, right, Robbie? Because I think we all are. How do they handle this? We know last year it got really tough, right? When Ivy first goes down, and you have to wait for that period before they bring in Dennis Schroeder. So how are they going to navigate this period here for a month, maybe even 2 if it takes a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think with his injury last season too, Asar kind of came back from his injury at the same time that Ivy got hurt. So we didn't see them on the floor a ton together as well. So really just more data with those young guys playing on the floor together, I was excited for. And if it's at least 4 weeks, I'm assuming, he's not ready to play 36 minutes, as soon as those 4 weeks are up. So we're looking at maybe December, that Ivy's ramped up again. And it's just, it's unfortunate. And I think, especially with the extension talks going on, it has felt like for him, he's just had some bad luck of, it seems less likely, I guess, for him than I would compare it to Duran's situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm wondering what it will look like in the starting lineup, because we already had Ivy in there and Penn kind of as a no-brainer. And the last preseason game yesterday. We're recording on Friday. You saw Duncan Robinson start alongside Asar, Tobias, Duren, and Cade. I guess because that is the starting lineup, I'm assuming that's what it's going to be on opening day and for the first few games. But Karis LeVert's the other guy that jumps out that you can swap him and Duncan and run one with the second unit or another. But the other thing is like, how much harder are buckets going to be to come by without Ivy? Because we know what a good 3-point shooter Duncan is. Karis LeVert's able to create a little bit for himself. But Jaden Ivey, we were talking about him as potentially, if he comes back full steam, which we know he's not, at least immediately right now, we were talking about him as maybe a 20-point per game a night guy. And we already had all these questions offensively with like Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, Jalen Duren's not going to shoot the ball. So I'm still, obviously when Ivy goes down, it's not really like a defense question. I just hope it doesn't hinder the offense as much as it possibly could.
Yeah, well, it's a very similar problem actually to what it was last year when he goes down, right? You're looking up and down this roster and you're kind of asking, okay, who can go create something when they need someone to go make something happen, right? Like you've got Cade, and I do think Karis LeVert can do a lot of that job. And in a pinch, you could probably go to Tobias Harris on a post up, right? But outside of that, I mean, they've been experimenting a little bit here with Asar Thompson with the ball in his hands, but I think we can all agree he's struggled just a little bit. And whether or not he develops that over time is, that's a separate question, but there's growing pains, even if he's going to get there. So as it stands right now, you're kind of looking at Cade's the real engine here, and there's not much else. Not that wasn't already going to be the case. It's just another weird situation where you lose a starting shooting guard and it feels like the biggest impact is the backup point guard. And that's just kind of weird, right? Like it doesn't feel like that's the usual setup. So I'm with you. I think it seems like it's going to be Duncan Robinson, the starting lineup, but that begs the interesting question. Is this like Marcus Sasser's big opportunity, right? Or is all this just going to accrue pretty much to Karis LeVert off the bench, do you think, Robbie?
I wondered if you even just ran an 8-man rotation to start the year and didn't go that route. But I also thought I would be happy with Sasser playing some more. I think Dennis Jenkins has played really, really well this preseason. If you wanted more point guard minutes instead of, I feel like Sasser offers more of that shooting guard role, but I do think it'll be Duncan as well in the starting lineup. I feel like Karis, just because he was the 6th man with JB back in Cleveland, that will probably be his role again. So I think they'll keep him to that. I did wonder the idea. I guess the only other consideration that I had for who would take his place in the starting lineup was Holland, and I think that I am just more excited about the potential of that lineup as opposed to actually wanting that to be the starting lineup, because I think Cade surrounded by Ron, Asar, and Duren. I like spacing, and that is not spacing.
Yeah, that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, like if we wanted to have the Stewart conversation, maybe, but like I don't really want to have that conversation, quite frankly, with you. So like, yeah, I'm intrigued by the pairing too, but yeah, that scares the crap out of me. What about you, Blake?
Agreed.
I mean, I think, Robbie, what you brought up, like I was going to bring up Dennis Jenkins too. He had that really strong preseason game against the Cavs and has looked good in his minutes in the preseason overall. We're just talking about a two-way guy, but this team is sitting with an open roster spot. I mean, we'll talk about maybe some outside of the walls options that they can go to with this Ivy news, but I am sort of thinking that they're going to go into the season. I mean, we only have a few more days now with the roster as is. Maybe you see Dennis Jenkins play a bit in the back of the rotation just to have another guard to go to, and like the amount of two-way games that he's allotted. And if he plays well enough, maybe he's converted into a full NBA deal at some time over the season. I mean, if Ivy, if and when he comes back, that will obviously hinder the minutes and take some away. But I think it's an opportunity for a guy like Dennis Jenkins, obviously more opportunity for Karis LeVert to create offense in the second unit as well. And even Ron, to a degree, like that's still definitely a work in progress, but it is an opportunity for these guys. I feel like the offense could be a little bit shaky out of the gate, especially in the second unit. But if it also, I'm looking at this last preseason game, which I don't put too much stock in, but Cade Cunningham had 12 assists in his 24 minutes. He's still making things happen with his team, or for his teammates. We saw everything he did without Ivy when Ivy went down last year. So I don't think the starting group will take too much of a hit. It's just the unknown of what that second unit is going to look like and who's going to dribble the ball and who's going to create offense.
All right, before we get too much further into this and into some of the questions we've been getting pre-submitted, Robbie, wanted to ask you kind of a two-parter, right? So one, tell us a little bit about the Under the Hood project you've been doing through the preseason, because if you guys are not reading Detroit Bad Boys and haven't picked up on this, it is a really great, really cool project that Robbie's been working on to kind of break down a little bit of a film review in a text format for these preseason games. And it is an awesome product. So you should check that out. And I want to let you kind of have the podium to give the pitch for that so listeners can go and do it. But then I also wanted to ask, since you've been doing these deep dives, what would be one trend that you've seen through these 4 games that you think is very exciting, and one trend that was maybe something to watch that they need to work on, right, as we start to going into the season?
Yeah, so I decided to start a new series this NBA season called Under the Hood, just to dive a little bit deeper into Pistons games, really to give me an excuse to do a little bit of film breakdown. Really, I'm sharing probably about 5 to 8 clips in a shorter article, just meant to maybe highlight some things that the box score didn't really tell the full story, or to point out some trends that are being discussed in the Pistons internet space, to highlight that in those articles. It's been really fun, and I will say the one thing that I think, after doing those 4 articles for the 4 preseason games, not to put too much stock into preseason stats, but I looked at the per 36 minutes for Cade this preseason, and the 2 that I really liked were that he was at 7 3-point attempts per game, and then thank you. Appreciate that, brother. And then he was also at 7 free throw attempts per game. So 7 3-point attempts per game would be a career high for him if he did that. And then 7 free throw attempts would also be a career high for him. So I think if he can increase those attempts and still shoot, the same percentages that he was at, I think that's his way of making the jump and getting to being a 30-point per game scorer if he can do it.
What do you see? Because what I've been trying to think about with Cade, especially over the preseason, is if he takes another jump as a scorer, like he averaged 26 last year, if he gets to 28 or closer to 30, do you see that hindering his assist numbers or just general playmaking ability? I mean, obviously his teammates have to make shots, but there weren't many guys in the NBA who averaged more assists than him last year. Like, we're talking about the elite of the elite. Mm-hmm. And I could see him, even if he scores like 28 a game, maybe he gets close to that 10 assists a game number too. And that's putting him in like Nikola Jokic, Trae Young territory.
Right. I guess you assume if somebody takes on more of a scoring role that that would come at passing it less. But then we see Cade's 12 assists last night, and it's like he just has the ball in his hands so much that I think it's going to be hard for him to not always, reach or be close to those double-digit assist marks. But I also feel like I was looking at some clips this morning, and I saw that the way that we opened the second half was an off-ball screen for Cade that came on a pass from Duncan. So it does seem like JB Bickerstaff is also finding more ways to get Cade the ball as an off-ball player. And, whether that's Duncan playmaking, I think it's really been Asar the most. But I do like the idea of off-ball Cade here and there. You know what I mean? Just using him as a scoring option. So it could be, in playing as more of an off-ball player that he could reach that 30 as well.
And just to add on for a second too, like often with guys that are like Cade that are already taking the heavy amount of scoring load that they are, it's kind of a fraudulent trade-off to say like, oh, they're going to score more, so that means they're passing less. Like, how many shot attempts did Cade really turn down last year? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was actively turning down looks so he could start to play make. What we're talking about with this points per game increase, like you brought up, Rob, it's efficiency. It's okay. He's taking more threes and making more threes.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting to the free throw line more. And that's the little stuff that gets you with about the same amount of shot attempts from 27 to 29, right? You're just doing it a little bit more efficiently. So it's not like he's actually taking more looks. He's taking the same number of looks. He's just better at them and he's getting to the free throw line more. But all right, so I wanted to ask you about the negative side too. Have you seen anything that's been a little bit concerning out of the preseason in these deep dives? And if so, maybe how could they fix it too?
Yeah, I have one that stood out right away, and I hate to do it because I think everybody thinks his potential is so high, but Asar's shooting has not been great this preseason. I don't remember what it was from the free throw line, but I knew that he's missed a bunch. He's taken a lot of free throws, which is great to see that, his on-ball creation is getting him to the line. But I know that he had a 3-point attempt last night. That was an air ball. And then I had a clip in the Under the Hood of this most recent game where Chris Middleton is like sagging off, guarding him in the paint while Asar has it at the 3-point line, as if you were guarding a center that couldn't shoot. So that's what stood out to me as like, this is when his inability to shoot becomes a spacing issue with Duren on the floor without, if Stu is playing, if he's playing a stretch big role. So that's where it's tough, where him as an off-ball player, you're just good. The defense wants him to shoot the ball. So you just have to find more ways to, I guess, get him the ball, dribble handoffs, pick and rolls, whatever you can do so that defender isn't sagging off like that. But I don't know if his shooting will ever come around. I know that he's working on it, but I'm not sure that's even the best use of his talents. So.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the free throw thing. Blake, I'll fall on this grenade myself because I think it was funny when we were talking about it. So I'm the one that made the joke. And obviously, Blake, we both we love Sar Thompson and his game. But we were talking about the free throw thing too. He and I were texting during I think it was the Cavs game. And Sar's getting to the line and he's not making hardly any of these free throws. And I think I said this is the unspoken part of Asar will score more if he gets to the line more. It's like he's got to make them when he gets there. It's like, it's a great in theory. It's great. But you have to put the ball in the hoop, and that's been a struggle so far. Sorry, Blake. I just thought that was good comedy.
Yeah. I mean, and just to put some numbers behind it, he was 1 for 5 from the line in the Cavs game. So big oof there. And then he made both of his free throws that he took against the Wizards in the preseason finale. I think so much of the talking point with Asar has been trying to find easy offense for him. But if it turns into a situation where he's getting to the line more and it gets to be as big of a talking point where maybe the other teams are okay fouling Asar and sending him to the line and he's not converting on them, then that's a problem, because I think with free throws, it can almost be a mental thing too, when you get in and that that's happening to you. But overall, I mean, I'm willing to go in and see how it goes to start the season. Like, I'm not confident he'll ever be a strong 3-point shooter, even like a strong mid-range shooter. I think he needs to operate around the basket and get as many easy looks as possible and take advantage of his athleticism. But it'll be so hard, and all the most improved buzz that he's getting from even like national media. He just needs to score the ball for that to come to fruition and take a jump there, which, I mean, I think he can score more than he did last year. I'm just not confident in it taking a bigger jump. But I think even in the preseason, we've seen everything he does on defense stand out. And maybe he is just that like perennial all defender guy who can turn defense into quick offense. And that's okay. It's a larger discussion when you loop in like the Jalen Duren of it, and what the offense will look like in general. But yeah, not the most like confident preseason from Asar, at least offensively.
And so last thing before we get to the questions, but Robbie, misery loves company. So I want to know if you've noticed this as well with Asar's free throw. And if so, what your thoughts are on it? Because it seems like he kind of offsets with his feet. Where he shoots very square on a catch and shoot, but at the free throw, he's got his left foot back a little bit farther than usual. And the only reason this stands out to me is because in every preseason game this year, this is new, he takes his free throw and his left hip rotates forwards after the ball leaves. And what's so bizarre about this is two things. One, your hips really shouldn't rotate when you're shooting a stationary shot. And two, it's happening late. Like the ball's halfway to the rim, and then he rotates it over. So I'm wondering if you've seen it, and then like, am I crazy? What are your thoughts on this? I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I haven't, but now I want to start looking for it. So I definitely will. But I feel like, we see those clips on Twitter of Asar and Ron always getting jumpers up with Vincent, and it definitely just feels like he has a hitch to that shot. But it seems like his setup is just so slow that I don't even think that if he was wide open, like you can get to him and close out quick enough that I just feel like his shot in general, I'm no shot guru whatsoever either. But I just feel like it doesn't look great. And I think Ron's, I know that people questioned his coming in, but I think Ron's, like, just looking at the two, it looks much more fluid. So I don't know if he'll ever be the shooter, but I do think the setup and everything, it just looks a little awkward, I guess.
Yeah, and fluid's the right word. And just to be clear, like I have no idea if that's an issue with his free throw. Like if you corrected that, would he make 70+% of his free throws? I don't know. I'm skeptical.
It makes me wonder.
It's just
what's
weird.
happening.
Like it looks
How
really
is he turning the hip to the left while I don't know.
Right. And then why is there a difference in his lineup between the free throw? I have no idea. I don't get it. But I don't know if it's important.
Though, so hopefully
we trust Vincent 100%. 100%. So let's get to some of the questions. This is Double Hezzy PL, who apparently longtime lurker, but very interested in our takes. So we appreciate you for finally asking a question. Welcome to join in. And guys, if you're tuning in live with us too, put your questions in the live chat. We'll try to get to those as well. But Spencer Dinwiddie just got released. That release announcement was also how I found out he was on the Charlotte Hornets. So what do you guys think about signing Spencer Dinwiddie to fill that second point guard spot here while Jaden Ivey's out?
Yeah, I didn't know he was on the Hornets until I saw a picture of him at Media Day. So I was right there with you. But Double Hezzy, welcome to DVB. I think I'm willing to ride out the give Asar some extra play making reps, give Karras, some extra minutes. If you have to bring in Sasser or bring in Danis to fill that insurance role. I think I still want to leave that roster spot open and save it for Beasley. And if it all works out and, we think Trajan thinks he's the right signing at that time, then I would just save it for Beasley. Otherwise, I would not sign like a third string center or a third string point guard, anything like that. I would keep it open for Beasley or take it into the season and maybe a trade opportunity opens up where you can use it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was going to say something similar, like see how it goes and maybe even set just like a threshold, whether it's 10 games or 20 games. And if it's really something that's hurting this team and you're seeing it reflected in the win-loss column, then go and make a move. I understand the Spencer Dinwiddie hype, I guess, to the Pistons. Like obviously a former Piston, had some time here. One of those guys that we might have let go of too soon. And because I didn't even really realize that Spencer Dinwiddie was on the Hornets either. Fun fact, he was traded to the Raptors from the Nets for Dennis Schroeder when Schroeder was like a Raptor for that short period of time. So he's had a whirlwind of a few years. And I think overall, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see another team go for him quicker than the Pistons would, just as a rotational depth piece, what have you. Especially since the regime change where Langdon was brought in, and I think we've seen it in the past too. I just think this front office is going to want to maintain a little bit of flexibility with that roster spot and help with some moves that they can make later on, because if they do make a big trade or any trade, it helps that you can take back more players that you send out and what have you. But in general, it also does help if we really do need a backup guard to bring someone in. Like you have the room, and honestly, you have the minutes to give someone. So, I mean, I'm definitely not holding my breath for Spencer Dinwiddie to become a Piston. I definitely wouldn't hate it if it happened immediately, but I think you just roll what you have in-house, especially because if Ivy's procedure and recovery from this other procedure that he had doesn't take as much time, then what happens when Ivy comes back? It makes things a little bit tricky. So I think they hold off for now, although it's definitely intriguing.
I think the only thing I'd add to, and we could honestly loop Malik Beasley in on this too, because I know my guy Caleb here is in the chat asking about that. We got a question a couple weeks ago from K Money 8 about the same idea. And like, you know, Trajan Langdon's a smart guy, right? We all agree. He seems to know what he's doing. You don't figure that all the guys on the roster that you've got penciled in to play minutes are going to be healthy for 82 games. Does it suck that Jaden Ivey's missing time to start the year? Yes. I would say even more so because he missed so much time last year, right? This was supposed to be his ramp-up period, and now that's getting stolen away from him, and that really sucks. But, like, you weren't banking on 82 games of Jaden Ivey. So presumably, if Trajan Langdon is a GM who knows what he's doing, and we all think that he is, then he set up this roster to be able to handle that for a short stretch of time, which this looks like it's going to be, right? Just a little bit over a month and a half, maybe close to 2 months. By the time we get to Christmas, you're thinking Jaden Ivey's back, and he's probably missed, like 20 plus games, under 30, somewhere in that, right? Like that's not the end of the world. You kind of bake that into the cake. So I'm with you guys. I don't want to do anything. I don't think there's anything to do. You figured that there's going to be some injuries to the guard room. It didn't have to be Ivy. You know, God forbid, it could have been Cade, knock on wood. But you figure that you set up the roster in a way that at least at this point in time right now, you think can handle the injury. Otherwise, you would have made other moves long before this happened, right? So if this is disproven, I'm with you, Blake, like set a timeline. If this is disproven, if we're 15 games into the year and it's just clear they cannot handle it, they're like 3-12, right? The sky's falling. All right, go sign somebody, go get someone to come in and try to steady the ship. But until something like that happens, I think you have to believe this management team thinks that they can handle an injury, and they're going to try to handle it, right? So I don't have any reason I don't think there's any reason to doubt that. And I'll kind of throw it back to you, Robbie, to get the final word here.
Yeah, I also wonder if you're getting cut from the Hornets, if you're even like, what has happened to Spencer Dinwiddie, if he's getting cut from the Hornets.
You don't want Killian Hayes? The Cavs are good.
Oh yeah, that was true. That was a recent cut as well. Yeah, I just think, even if you're still looking for data on all the young guys, it's also just an excuse to throw more minutes at Asar, throw more minutes at Ron, and just see what you got. So you want to throw those minutes at Ivy as well if you can, but it is what it is. If he's out for a month, then give the young guys some more young minutes. Let's see if Asar can really handle some on-ball playmaking, and wait for Ivy to return and just keep going from there.
All right, since we're talking about Ivy, let's talk about Jalen Duren as well, because obviously this injury is going to have some kind of impact, you would think, on that extension conversation with Ivy. Like, it would be incredibly shocking at this point for Ivy to get a deal before the season starts, which means that this is probably all going to restricted free agency. So Shags from the DBB comments wants to know, how does Keegan Murray's extension at 5 years, 140 million, I think with incentives it's up to 145, don't quote me on that though, how would that extension impact the extension talks for Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren? Blake, so I'll throw to you first here. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's interesting because it's obviously the same draft class. It's a big number. Obviously, Keegan Murray was a higher draft pick than Ivy and Duren, just one higher than Ivy. So it's similar. I think it's okay comp for both of Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren's camps to at least keep in mind with these discussions, because Keegan Murray he's a good player. He's a good NBA player. I don't really know what the Kings are doing roster wise or where their franchise is headed, but he hasn't proven a whole lot other than he's an impactful NBA player. And I think I can say the same thing about both Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. But also, Keegan Murray is a wing. He's a different player than both of these guys that we're talking about. So I think although it's definitely the timely comparison on what these numbers could look like, I don't think it's the perfect answer. Like, I think for Jaden Ivey, you look more to Jalen Green, what he got a year ago, things like that. Because there's just so much unknown. I mean, Keegan Murray is pretty much the young piece that the Kings could commit to, and I don't fault them for doing that, especially when wings are highly coveted in free agency and everything. So I don't think it has too much stock into it, but it's like a loose comparison that both the Pistons front office and their representation can take into account.
Yeah, when I saw this question, I thought it was just like a very interesting conversation topic, because along with what you said, Blake, just them basically being in the same draft class, also being an extension eligible, but everybody kind of playing their own position. Like, they're not very comparable players. And I think that we probably are looking in the range of 5 to 140, maybe 125 if we're looking a little lower. I mean, who knows? But I guess my concerns, and I wonder if, the front office is having the same concerns given how long this has taken, is offensive, like heavy, smaller guards. I feel like are those bigger contracts that people are trying to get off of, whether it's the Bradley Beal, the CJ McCollum, the Jalen Green,
Poole.
Yeah, Jordan Poole, another one that got traded this summer. And then with Duren, it makes me wonder, like, out of all the centers that are paid big money, how many of them can shoot compared to the ones that can't shoot, that can stretch the floor. And I would assume majority of them can shoot. I know Nick Claxton, I think, got 4 for 100 last summer. So if we're looking at 25 million a year, I guess I would be fine with that for Duren. I don't know this enough on the cap side. I mean, I know that it's supposed to just keep exploding each year. So I just, from a financial standpoint, similar to what the Kings did, lock Duren up for 5 years if you can. The Ivy thing, I guess it's a bad time, I guess, to feel like to talk about Ivy extensions, coming off the injury, expecting him to be back, having to deal with another injury. So it does feel like Duren's stock is rising while Ivy's has been falling recently.
Yeah, and I'm almost sorry, Wes, to just jump in with a quick thing. I'm almost wondering if you have to make a decision on Asar Thompson before you make a decision on either of these guys. And maybe it's not like the cadence of the transactions doesn't happen exactly in that order, but if you're going to commit all this money to Asar Thompson next year, does that impact Jalen Duren's future mainly? Like, does that limit the money you have for Ivy? So obviously Asar has his questions too, but there's Asar coming up as well, and then Ron Holland the year after that. So I think that those two projects, I'll call them, come into account here in this conversation.
The only thing I was going to add was, like, if I'm trying to devil's advocate this even more than Robbie, I think you already did a pretty good job of doing. Like, is there anything to an argument that says, look, Keegan Murray is not a specialist? You know, he's a shooter, he's a good defender, and he's kind of multiple in the positions he can play. He can be a 3 or a 4. Whereas you look at Ivy, and okay, yeah, he's a little bit multiple offensively, but he's certainly not a plus defensively, and he's a rim attacker. We think that shooting came around last year, but we don't have a lot of sample for that, so we don't know that for certain yet. And it's the same kind of story with Duren, right? Like, he's not a defender, he's not a shooter, he's a lob threat big. So you're looking at a score first, undersized, quote unquote, at 6'4", undersized guard, and then a lob threat big, whereas Keegan Murray is maybe playing a more premium position and can do a couple of things at extension level well, right? Again, I'm just trying to devil's advocate. Is there anything to that, do you think?
I just feel like it's so hard to compare wing contracts to non-wing contracts. You almost just have to like separate them into their own category because of how much the NBA loves wings now. Which, who knows what an Asar extension looks like? Who knows if Holland keeps up the way that he's been playing? They definitely have the defensive side of the ball down that maybe Ivy and Duren, as the more recent extensions, do not, or are growing.
All right, let's stick with one more kind of Ivy related question. This is a voicemail from our guy, a fella who, shout out to him because he is always using the voicemail chat, and we love it. These are our favorite types of questions. So here is a fella.
So this is a fella, and I got 4 words for you. Dennis Jenkins, backup point guard? That's more than 4, but you know what I mean. Where do we see Dennis Jenkins fitting in with all this, especially with Jaden Ivey out? All right. Can't wait to hear from you.
All right, let's leave aside the poor addition that was going on there with the word counting. We can look past that, a fella. So Dennis Jenkins, we've mentioned already, he's had a very solid preseason. Is there any stronger thought of maybe not pulling him up right away into a full-time contract, but he has days that he can be with the NBA team, and I do think that he played really well here in the preseason. Is this a guy that you think maybe we ought to be looking at getting some minutes here to start out the year as that Ivy replacement loosely?
Right. I think if there was ever a time, this is the time to do it. You know, I think his preseason play, I guess it's very easy to want to compare him to Sasser, I guess, as those two like shorter kind of combo, kind of point guard type of players, but he just looks so comfortable with the ball. He looks like he has no problem playmaking, like getting into the paint for a drive and kick. He shot it well. He's been hitting step backs. Like he just very much looks like he belongs on the court this preseason. So I think, you know, if Cade's sitting and you need a quick 6 minutes of Jenkins running the point, I mean, if there's ever a time, I feel like based on his play and based on the Ivy situation, like this would be the perfect time for him and to use some of those games on his 2-way deal.
Yeah, I think it's almost like we were talking about a bit earlier, this period, however long it's going to be with Ivy out, is going to be almost a tryout of him being on this team for it, maybe not a long haul, but for impactful minutes and potentially getting a full NBA deal at some point within this season. I mean, if you go through this roster and you just look at what the opening night roster would be, we all know what it's going to be, but the only name to me that isn't on it that could have a case is Dennis Jenkins. We've seen the Pistons convert two-way guys to full NBA deals shortly before the season in the past. Stanley Amude is the name that jumps out to me, but Jenkins is just one of those guys, and we saw him a bit last year, and he was good in the G League. He's just one of those older guards that came into the draft, undrafted guy who's honestly probably one of the most highly coveted undrafted guys in his draft class. He played 5 years in college. He was a Rick Pitino guy. I got to watch him a bit when he was at Iona because he played my St. Bonaventure squad and killed them, honestly. So he's just a solid guard, and I think he's more ready to take a bigger role than maybe some similar players in his draft class. I'm not fully in the boat of like Dennis Jenkins, the backup point guard at the NBA level yet, but if he comes in and makes a decent amount of impact in his minutes, I can at least certainly see him being an end of the bench rotational guard kind of guy.
All right, so I'm glad you brought that up, that maybe this is too early, because I wanted to ask both of you guys 2 questions here before we move on. And that's just, so first of all, is it unreasonable to say that Dennis Jenkins is the only other point guard on this roster other than Cade Cunningham? Like, is that where we're sitting right now with how we view Jenkins himself, how we view Marcus Sasser? And that's not a knock on Sasser, right? I'm not trying to say that Jenkins jumped him or anything, because I think Sasser's very good at what he does. I'm still intrigued by the player they have there, but I don't really look at him as a point guard. So I'm wondering if you guys would make that same or similar statement. And then second, regardless of that, is it possible this is just a little bit too early? Like, I think we're all on the same page with Dennis Jenkins. There's something there, and there's something worth developing and finding out. But is there a risk of maybe throwing him to the wolves a little bit too soon, having to pull the plug, and then that may be doing more damage than benefit? Because on the track that he's on, like, maybe even by late in the season, if you could kind of keep marinating him a little bit, right? Keep him around, keep him developing, and then you kind of come out after the All-Star break in a pinch. And I feel like he might be better set up in that sort of scenario rather than right now, or maybe it's a little bit more scattershot and maybe there's a little bit more risk to it. So what, both of you guys, what do you think about that?
It was funny you asked that, because I was going to ask, at what point does the team start like prioritizing Dennis over Sasser? And I think it's due to, I feel like Dennis plays the way I want Sasser to develop into, if that makes sense, with the playmaking side of things. So it's almost like Dennis
defensively too.
Defensively and his playmaking ability. So it's almost like if I want Sasser to become this type of like 3-and-D playmaker that can handle the ball for a little bit while Cade sits, like, is that Dennis already? But we're talking a few preseason games that we got to see. I think it was the second game where he started, and like Cade sat, Ivy sat, Sasser sat, I think Levert maybe even sat. So like he was the only point guard at that point that we had to play. So he definitely had the opportunity to showcase his talent. But I do think maybe we are getting it's a little too soon for the Dennis hype train. But I think if you do give him this smaller role while Ivy is out, if he handles 8 to 12 minutes and that continues to go well, then I think that's when those conversations can start. But so I do think we're a little early on the hype train.
I think it's fair to say that Jenkins is the only point guard on this roster besides Cade, even if you keep Ivy in the equation. Like, I don't think that's Ivy's true position, but that definitely doesn't mean that those Cade and Jenkins are the only players on this team who can create offense. So that's going to be Dennis Jenkins's challenge into finding his way into being like a 10-year NBA guy, is you have these Karis LeVerts and guys of that same ilk who are different kinds of players, but can also create offense to their own degree. So can you prove that you deserve minutes alongside guys like that, and what have you. But I mean, we knew that this team didn't really have a backup point guard. We expected Jaden Ivey to take on that role, and now he's out with injury. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that, at least.
All right, this is a fun question. Robbie, Blake and I have had fun with a couple of these in the past from our guy Caleb. Lanu says, I have a question from a friend of mine who's a Bulls fan. He wants to know how his Bulls would line up against the Pistons this season. So, Robbie, what we're going to do is go starting five versus starting five. How would you guard the Bulls? And then how might the Bulls try to stop the Pistons? So, according to Real GM, which is what I'm going to go off here, it appears to be, and this makes sense to me, so I'm going to run with it, that the Bulls are probably going to start Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Pat Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. How would you match up the Pistons' likely starters? And I guess you get to pick who the starting shooting guard is as well. So how would you match up the Pistons' likely starters up against
Modest has got to be in there.
I was going to say Buzelis.
I mean, I don't know, but maybe. I'll disrespect Bottas. I'll disrespect him. That's going to get clipped.
Thank you for running through that. I did not. I was like, who else is on the Bulls roster? I couldn't think of everybody in their lineup. All right, so Giddey, he didn't shoot it too bad last year, but I'm not scared of Giddey shooting the ball. So honestly, if we wanted to get like playoff series, I would put Duren on Giddey, and let Giddey shoot. Who was at the two?
That's spicy. I love it.
Kobe White or Kobe White. Yeah.
Kobe White is probably the best on-ball player, so I'd put a SAR on him. I'd put Duncan on who's the three? Ayo?
Yeah.
Gosh, but then who am I putting Cade on Patrick Williams?
I mean, I don't think
Tobias on
Patrick
Vooch?
Williams is
not exactly like Pat Will has been much of a threat.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I like him as a prospect still, but it's not like he's been
It makes me think
scorer.
It makes me think of JB Bickerstaff's playoff lineups where he was putting Tobias on Cat and so yeah, I'm not afraid of Giddey, so I would just let Giddey shoot the ball. He could have open threes all day. So that's what I would do. How do the games go? 4-0 this season. That's what we'll call it. It's a 4-0 series sweep.
Wes is like the only guy still on Pat Williams Island, like has the front property.
Maybe Troy Weaver too, though.
I'm holding on to it. There's too many tools. There's so many tools.
It's
gotta come one day, right?
That's a niche Bill Simmons joke for everyone out there. But I mean, I am mostly aligned with you, Robbie. But I honestly wonder with how much Vooch has killed the Pistons and just players of that ilk, do you put a SAR on him and then maybe have Duren on Pat Williams and go from there, Tobias on Pat Williams and figure it out? I mean, I really think Modest could overtake Pat Williams' spot in the starting lineup, and then that makes things a bit more tricky in how you're going to defend them. I mean, on paper, the Pistons are obviously the better team. They should win all the games against Chicago, but that's not how this league goes. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bulls steal a game or maybe even two if things got crazy, just because we know how much the Nikola Vucevic and Miles Turners of the world have been able to kill the Pistons. So I think that's really just the challenge with a team like that. That is a big question that the Pistons have to answer just in general for the long haul.
I fear stretch bigs when we play against them. But how do you think Chicago would guard us? Who would they put on Cade?
Ayo's on Cade for sure.
That's who I would think so,
yeah,
too.
100%. I think they're probably – I mean, you'd think they're rolling
Duncan
Vucevic is going to go against Duren.
I would think so.
They probably don't have to worry too much about that. I mean, the problem is
Pat Will on
they've
Tobias?
got two guards that they need to hide. And that's hard to do at this point against Detroit. So, would you rather have Kobe White
lineup? We're so tall
Yeah,
if
on
you
a
put
SAR.
Duncan in. Cade's the smallest guy in this new starting lineup without Ivy. So their guard situation is small between
Yeah.
Kobe and Io.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I'm not going to make any Chicago Bulls fans here, but can I just say, I honestly think it gets easier to match up against Chicago if Matas Buzelis starts instead of Pat Will. Cause like, I'm so comfortable throwing Tobias Harris on Matas Buzelis if that's the case.
Yeah.
He can't get around physical defenders. He doesn't have the handle or the quickness to do it. Like, so just tell Tobias to body him as much as he wants, and you're totally fine. Now that does leave you open for Vucevic kind of taking your lunch money a little bit, but I don't think that they really have the horses outside of that. My only other thing, what do you think about having Asar Thompson on Josh Giddey, guys?
Yeah,
because Josh Giddey is
like
kind of the straw that stirs the drink there for them. He's like their Cade Cunningham light, right? He's not that kind of guy, but they use him in that way. So if you could take that away from them, yeah, Kobe White might score a bunch. Yeah, Vucevic might get his, but it'll be a little bit more disjointed. Maybe you can basically lock down everybody else.
Yeah, they want to cause chaos this year, and I think that would be a
True.
good way to do it. I think there are times last year where Asar would full court press, but it would be against, a smaller guard that can beat him up the court. And I think if Giddey doesn't have the tightest handle, if Asar is up and in him, up all full court, that I definitely think he would get a couple steals that way and cause some chaos that way too. So all for that.
Yeah, all right, before we move on, let's get the defense.
Yeah, I was thinking you could just put Asar on Kobe White too as another.
Oh, true.
It's kind of just like,
yeah,
who do you want to score or pass the ball?
Blake, how's Chicago lining up against Detroit? I think we're probably all agreeing Vucevic is going on Duren and Io's on Cade. So what do they do with those guards, man? That's not an enviable spot.
Who's chasing around Duncan? Who's chasing him around screens?
I mean,
it's like, you can't have Pat Will do that.
Right.
He's going to get.
He's got to body up Tobias.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got to be Kobe White, right?
Yeah, and so if Duncan is putting it in
shooting
the net
over Kobe
night, that's like your answer, I guess.
But like ideally, you want to hide Kobe White on Asar Thompson.
Yeah,
because I do think Josh Giddey's a better defender. It's just I wouldn't want to ask Josh Giddey to run through screens. That's not.
I would like Asar
Josh Giddey's
on
strength.
ball against Giddey offensively.
Yeah, and you'd like that
I would
too.
like him.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the Pistons honestly just are like the better roster on paper, and it's not like
how far we've come.
Yeah, so it's crazy. But it's also like, what are the Bulls doing? They have a lot of. We spend so much time talking about the flaws that the Pistons have. You could do that and then some with the Bulls as well. So I think overall, like the Pistons are able to create an advantage. I mean, against a lot of teams, honestly, but especially a team like that, like Io will make things tough for Cade, but Cade will still get his. And yeah, if you have a guy like Kobe White on Duncan Robinson, then if Duncan's making his shots, then there you go.
So this is such an interesting question, actually, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, because it kind of brings up a bit of an issue with Detroit as of right now. And of course, this links back to the unfortunate Jaden Ivey news. But as we're going through this, it becomes pretty obvious that against, you would assume, quite a few teams, it seems like the Pistons are going to be able to create some form of a lineup advantage. My question to you guys is, who other than Cade is going to be able to capitalize on that on their own, like without any sort of help from Cade? Because that's part of the problem, right? Like we're talking about Duncan Robinson being able, he could just fire over Kobe White. Well, he's going to need to be having that look created for him. It's not like you can just get him the ball and he's going to go take it. Same thing with Asar. Like, okay, yeah, Josh Giddey's going to be guarding Asar Thompson, but you need to set something up for Asar to take advantage of that. It's not just like you could have him ISO out on the wing. There's no reason to expect that would go all that well. So how do they take advantage of this stuff?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. I do think, can I flip it around and say at least I do think this roster in general sticks to, or just like has so much versatility. Like, did you guys see last night? Even Stu and Duran got some minutes together on the court. I had Stu playing the 4, which we haven't seen that in quite a while. I do think defensively it starts with Asar. I feel like if we ever play, which I love that we can even afford to play this game, that we can pick and choose, like, oh, well, we could also put this guy here, but I feel like you have to start with who is Asar on, and then you can build the rest of it from there. So I just feel like I've always believed the concept that you can play the position that you can guard. So if you can guard point guards, like, you would technically be a point guard. And for Asar, it's like, I just continue to call him a Swiss Army knife, because it's like, I'm not sure I want him playing point guard, but he can play point guards, but he could also play like a power forward offensively if you wanted to use him as a roller. And
select
so he's
centers
just,
as well if they're not physical.
Yep, smaller
It's
centers
insane.
if you wanted to. So I just think I steered your question a little bit, but the versatility on defense, I really, really enjoy that it all starts with Asar.
No, I like it. Let's close out on this one. All right. So let's look forwards here again. And apologies to Hunt Baker, who asked us a couple questions. We didn't get to these. And Double Hezzy as well had another one that we didn't get to. So we're going to try to, as long as they're still relevant, because that's always the risk we run here by carrying questions into next week. As long as they're still relevant, we're going to try to get to these then. But JP423 asked us a really interesting question. And I'm particularly interested to hear your answer, Robbie, after doing all of those deep dives you did for our preseason with the Under the Hood series. So what lineups are you most intrigued by for the Pistons this season?
I think we may have the same lineup, Wes. So if I'm stealing your thunder, I apologize.
Take it and run. And you know darn well you are, because we talked about it before the pod. So just take it, man. You're good. It's all yours. It's all.
I just instantly agreed. It was the first one I thought of too. I think everybody wants to see Asar and Ron on the floor together. So I think that my lineup is going to start with those two. Obviously, you got to throw Cade on there. If Asar and Ron are on the floor together, you got to have shooting. So I'm going to put Duncan in there. And then and he has to play this role in this lineup, if Stu is shooting threes, then I want him at the 5. And so we can just spread the floor out. We can have lob threats in Ron and Cade in transition. They can wreak their 9-to-5 chaos on the defensive end. And it's another lineup where Cade is the shortest player or the smallest player on the court. And I think anytime that we can put out a lineup like that is the most exciting to me.
Okay. Yeah. Only thing, because that was also mine. Think about Isaiah Stewart defensively with the chaos that Ron Holland and Asar Thompson are going to cause. Oh, that could be so fun.
He'd be bored in the paint. There would be nobody.
He would. He'd be just going rogue, and like Isaiah Stewart going to hunt blocks and steals. That just seems fun to me. Like, cut that guy loose. Let's have some fun defensively in Detroit again. I'm all for it. I'm with you, Robbie. So Blake, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I just to go elsewhere. I mean, I think there's nowhere else to start but Javonte Green. I'm just kidding, guys.
Look, you do what you got to do. Like, whatever.
Shout out to Javonte Green, though.
Sasser, right?
Don't mean to make a joke about it. I think he's actually had a nice.
He's been impressive. I've enjoyed what I've seen.
Good this preseason.
Yeah, and
Tolu too. Honestly, I mean, he caught a stray there too. I thought he's looked solid as well.
Yeah, and I think
we apologize.
And Sasser. Sorry, that's at the end the joke, right? That was the
sorry,
last
everyone.
These were only the jokes because they're the bottom 5 on the roster, not because they had a bad preseason.
Correct.
Just to be clear. Not that we're not going to get clipped for that. Anyway.
No, I think Javonte Green, it will be a strong rotational green wing. But just to go like somewhere else, I would like, and I don't think it's realistic to play this lineup for a bunch of minutes, but just put as many shooters out there around Cade as possible and see what happens. So with Cade, and I mean, anchor it with Stu. So this isn't going to be your best defensive lineup. They're not going to make as many plays as the Asar, Ron, Stu lineup, but put Cade out there with Stu, Duncan, Tobias, and LeVert and see what happens there, and just make life as easy as possible, at least offensively, for Cade. Defense with this lineup is obviously the tough point, and which is why I think you're not going to see it for many minutes, if at all. But just with all the spacing talk, and when you have Asar and Duren in your starting lineup, like, why not make the guy's life easier for a few minutes here and there? And hopefully whoever he can get the ball to in the corners, on the wings, whatever, can knock down a shot for him. And Isaiah Stewart's not a lob threat, but hopefully he can make things happen in the post a little bit and can step out and shoot as well.
If you want pure shooting, Sasser instead of LeVert.
Yeah, you could even do it like, I mean, hey, Chaz Lanier's there and on the roster. So
sign Beasley, throw him in there.
Yeah, Beasley.
Worse, the never-ending question at this point.
Yeah, you can go anywhere.
Will they bring it back?
Also, it's crazy that like Paul Reed is still on this team. Like, we saw him. Yeah, we like haven't really talked about him much, but he's still a solid third big out there. So yeah, it's just like talking about the Javonte Greens and the Sassers and everything. I was like, shout out to Paul Reed too.
Paul Reed will forever be one of my favorite Pistons because I love the mentality so much. The guy, if he comes in injury relief, he's playing his role. He's doing all the little stuff. He hustles. He's getting rebounds. He's getting dirty in the paint, and he's wrestling with guys. He's a really good system player. But if Paul Reed checks into a blowout game, it's Paul Reed time.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it so much because like he's got the control. Like he's got the control. If it's real, if it's serious, he's going to go and he's going to do his job. But if it doesn't matter, the man's getting up shots. And I can't relate to that mindset, and it cracks me up. I just love it so much.
And that's B-ball Paul.
I've never wanted a third center more on my roster than I've wanted B-ball Paul to stay our third center.
Yeah.
Yes. He's a crucial offseason addition when his contract is up. You bring him back.
Yeah, he's the epitome of that meme, like you said, Wes. Like, that's just like, it's Paul Reed time, quote, Paul Reed. And I love it out of him. Like you said, it takes some confidence to do that. I love it.
And it's like, time and place. If you do it then, great. Just don't do it when it's a little bit more important than that. And he never does. So I will forever love Paul Reed for that. All right. I think we got to wrap up the show here. Robbie, let everyone know where they can find all your stuff. Pitch Under the Hood again, so people know that they need to go and follow that and what they can expect when they're reading that throughout the season. And yeah, just plug whatever you've got going on, man.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at BobbyBuckets313. And the new article series that we've started this season is called Under the Hood, and it's like it's a little film breakdown without diving too deep into the weeds. Just some fun stuff to look at and some things to kind of keep up with throughout the season and see how things change. So appreciate you guys inviting me back on here, man. And it's always a pleasure, always a good time.
Yeah. Thanks, Robbie, for joining. We'll definitely have you on again soon here once we have some real basketball to talk about, which is next week. Next time we record. So I'm excited for that. We're there. We got through another off season. So shout out to everyone for joining, and shout out to a fella for using the voice line again. Reminder, anyone can call that number, ask a question, leave some thoughts, and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.